Cooking with Digimon returns with Beelzemon making its way into the kitchen. One thing that I love doing with archetypes is always looking at newer cards and seeing if they can fit into the build. With Greymon, it became as simple as dropping the Greymon X protection effects to greatly increase efficiency and utilization of the effects. But with Beelzemon, you might be wondering what is so significantly different about this build, considering the deck is mostly solved at least until Special Booster 2.5. And the answer ultimately becomes, do you want to feel like you're playing Miragegaogamon, but with Beelzemon? And this is what I've been cooking with. To recap, Beelzemon decks predominantly look at trashing their decks as quickly as possible to go into Beelzemon X. With Beelzemon X, this card released in BT12 is able to trash your opponent's security for every 10 cards in your trash. Meaning if you've chipped 2 or even 3 security and you have 30 cards in your trash, you can clear the way with Beelzemon X before you go for game. But with the inclusion of Ace Digimon, Beelzemon players have been forced to adapt. And not only are Ace Digimon a problem, but the untouchable Digimon like Magnamon X at times as well. There are 3 primary Beelzemons that players will flow to, and each has their own unique ability. The first Beelzemon that most players gravitate to is EX2 Beelzemon. This Digimon has a when Digivolving, when attacking effect that you may trash the top 2 cards of your deck, then delete one of your opponent's level 3 or lower Digimon. For every 10 cards in your trash, you add 1 to the maximum level of the Digimon you choose with this effect. While the removal is nice, another aspect of this card is that when it's trashed from the top of the deck, you may play one impmon from your trash without paying its memory cost. This is a great way to potentially play back EX2 impmon for searching Beelzemons, but for this cooking video it offers the aspect of playing back BT2 impmons for some hilarious Mirage-like interactions. The second Beelzemon most players have played with is the 14th starter deck variant, a Digimon that when Digivolving trashes the top 4 cards of your deck. In addition, all turns, once per turn when a card is trashed from your deck, gain 1 memory for every 10 cards in your trash. It also has a your turn effect where when a card is trashed, this Digimon gains security attack +1. But the third Beelzemon that made its debut in EX6 Infernal Ascension is one that many players are currently on because it has an on-play and when Digivolving effect that trashes the top 4 cards of the deck before it de-digivolves 2 if you have 10 or more cards. The secondary effect for this card is only useful when playing the deck with Gate of the Deadly Sins, which, for this video, is not the primary focus. However, this Digimon is also convenient for aggro because it can also rush your opponent down. And while all these cards are fine and dandy, Beelzemon decks tend to suffer from one thing, and that's bricking with so many option cards that are usually removal. But without a trash that's set up, sometimes Deathslingers are dead cards because they can only target level 4 or lower Digimon until there are 10 cards in the trash for level 5s, and then you need 20 for level 6s. Consistency cards like Ai and Mako from the starter deck have been very useful for finding your pieces and resetting the top of the deck. But in reconstructing this deck, I started looking into alternative plays and combos that the deck could operate with. Ai and Mako can on play search the top 4 cards of the deck for a Digimon with the Evil, Wizard, or Demon Lord trait before placing the rest on the bottom. The Your Turn effect allows you to suspend this Tamer and return 1 card from your hand to the top of the deck to gain 1 memory when one of your Digimon digivolves into a purple Digimon, thereby allowing you to manipulate the top of the deck before you trash via your Digimons when digivolving effect. But in looking at the on-play effect for the different trait Digimon, there's one Digimon that caught my eye, and here's where the real cooking really begins. Witchmon from EX6 is a very interesting Digimon to consider for adding into a Beelzemon deck. It has an on-play and when digivolving effect that by trashing 1 card in your hand until the end of your opponent's turn, one of their Digimon gains end of attack, delete this Digimon. Which means, if you trash a useless option card in your hand, or even an impmon to set up your potential pseudo-Mirage play, huzzah! But the real trick here is that its inheritable effect, where opponent's turn, once per turn when an opponent's Digimon attacks, by deleting one of your other Digimon, you end the attack. So now you may be wondering, what is the general combo that makes this deck like Miragegaogamon? With Witchmon's inheritable, and starter deck 14 Beelzemon, you could, depending on your board state, set up a BT2 impmon when you digivolve into Beelzemon and pull the memory to 1 or even 2. If your opponent doesn't have a memory fixer, your opponent is now forced to delete Beelzemon before they can make a move. Because when they attack using Witchmon's effect, you can delete the impmon in order to trash 3 cards. Once you hit 20 cards in trash, Beelzemon picks up 2 memory. And believe me, at times it's very easy to convert your board into 2 Beelzemons before you pass back turn. In this instance, you could be stealing not just 2 memory, but 4. And while the combo comes up occasionally, the deck still performs like normal Beelzemon and goes for those aggressive checks and removals. So now the question, what does the deck profile look like? The deck profile overall is standard, but one thing you will immediately notice is that this deck runs 0 Death Slingers. And when I pitched this deck profile to one of my purple buddies, Tomo is real, he immediately had second thoughts on the functionality of the deck. However, we playtested this, and it was working really well. You'll also find that this deck does not run x-antibody despite running Beelzemon X. As questionable as it is, it feels like you trash a lot faster in this deck, and setting up a lot faster with more defensive elements than you ever had before. Bottom line, let's go through this deck profile real quick. Yammons are the only eggs I'd recommend in this build, because with your level 4 and higher Digimon, you can always trash 2 cards. Keep in mind, all of your trashing effects are mandatory, except for EX2 Beelzemon, so be careful with this deck. Level 3s, you've got only 3 impmon X's, but this is also mainly because you want to play out your impmons as quickly as possible, maximizing your trash to a certain point for effectiveness of your cards. BT2 impmons especially help with this combo. Your starter deck impmons help with the floodgates, but this card also shines very well in the presence of EX6 who can potentially de-digivolve it to a level 3 first, before the effect goes off. Otherwise, you've got your normal EX2 variant that you're able to place on top of your deck and trash, which means you could be trashing an additional 3 cards off the top. Level 4s, I opted to maintain the 4 copies of Promo Wizardmon for the extra memory when it's trashed. Of course, you can utilize its when attacking effect to stack cards on top of the deck before you trash as well. Did I mention that this effect isn't once per turn? Wizardmon X can occasionally be used for blocking and also trashing more cards, but the new Witchmon is where I found amusement with this build in just testing something different. Baalmon wise, of course you're going to max out the starter deck ones, and 3 copies of Baalmon X for not only trashing 3 cards, but its ability to provide you another DP buff of plus 2000 DP for each inheritable, meaning Magnamon X becomes less of a problem in regards to size. And of course the 1 copy of Baalmon from BT10 for its more active role in trashing. That being said, though this card can be finicky especially if you're wanting to maintain Witchmon as the inheritable source. We've already covered all the Beelzemons except for Beelzemon X, but largely this card is here to help trash the remaining security before you go for game. It also floats an impmon when it's deleted. Double Beelzemon Blast Mode surprisingly works wonders when it's trashed from the top of the deck and can potentially delete not just level 3, 4, and 5 Digimon, but level 6s as well. Trashing off and deleting an ace Digimon in particular is very amusing. Option card wise, the only forms of removal in the deck are Rivals Barrage and 7th Full Cluster, where Rivals Barrage targets the highest level Digimon, and 7th Full Cluster can be bottom decked to delete the lowest level Digimon when you go into Beelzemon X. But Wisdom trainings are always nice for consistency. And lastly, the 3 Iron Makos for regaining memory and searching for every card in the deck other than itself and the options. But generally again, I wanted to try something different with Beelzemon because consistency wise, it felt very bricky with so many options. But with the upcoming support in Special Booster 2.5, who knows? I might go back to something similar to the old format. What are your thoughts on this episode of Cooking with Digimon, and will you be utilizing Witchmon to a certain degree? Let me know your thoughts, and I'll catch you on another upload this week. So much to discuss, and so many products being released. This is DIGI-PANDA, logging out.